Sergeant Ethan Cole had been on Outpost Meridian for exactly 3 weeks, and in that time he'd learned two important things. First, that Carinth warriors could break a human in half without breaking a sweat, and second, that they almost never smiled. The lack of smiling was actually more unnerving than the casual displays of superhuman strength. At least when someone was throwing you across a training mat, you knew where you stood. The outpost itself was a joint venture, one of those diplomatic achievements that looked great on paper and terrifying in person. Humans learning from Carinth, sharing tactics, building bridges, all that inspirational stuff the recruitment videos talked about. What they didn't mention was that Carinth combat training made Earth's special forces look like a yoga retreat. Ethan adjusted his training harness for the fourth time that morning, trying to get the chest strap to sit right. The equipment was human-made, designed for human proportions, which meant it fit him fine but looked absolutely ridiculous on his 7-foot-tall alien instructors. Not that he'd ever say that out loud. He valued his spine's current alignment. Instructor Vekara stood across the training hall, running another group through close-quarters combat drills. She moved like water, if water could kill you in 6 different ways before you hit the ground. Her skin was the color of polished silver with faint darker patterns that shifted as she moved, and her ears, those long, elegant ears that all Carinth possessed, tracked every sound in the room with predatory precision. She wore the standard training gear, form-fitting and practical, and carried herself with the kind of confidence that came from knowing exactly how dangerous you were. Ethan had been assigned to her unit by lottery, which felt less like luck and more like cosmic punishment. She was legendarily strict, accepted no excuses, and had a reputation for pushing human recruits until they either evolved or quit. So far, Ethan had managed not to quit. Evolving was still theoretical. The morning drill was zero-gravity maneuvering, which sounded cool until you were actually tumbling through 3-dimensional space, trying not to vomit while an instructor threw weighted objects at your head. Ethan had gotten pretty good at it, relatively speaking. He only wanted to die a little bit instead of a lot. Vekara called a break with a sharp gesture. The other recruits, 3 humans, 2 Carinth juniors, immediately collapsed in various states of exhaustion. Ethan grabbed his water container and tried to look like he wasn't dying. "Fake it till you make it," his old drill sergeant used to say. That guy had never trained under aliens. He watched Vekara as she moved to check equipment stations, her movements efficient and precise. She paused at the harness rack, reaching for one of the training rigs. It was the same model Ethan wore, but scaled up for Carinth proportions. She lifted it, examining the buckles with a slight tilt of her head that Ethan had learned meant she was concentrating. Then she tried to put it on. The harness, designed by humans who'd clearly never actually watched a Carinth try to dress themselves, had buckles in the back. Complicated buckles. Buckles that required either assistance or the flexibility of a contortionist. Vekara reached behind herself, her long fingers built for weapons, not fine manipulation, fumbling with the catch. Her ears flattened, just slightly, a sign of frustration that Ethan had learned to recognize. She tried again, twisting to get a better angle. The buckle refused to cooperate. Her skin rippled with faint color changes, silver to a slightly darker gray. She was getting genuinely annoyed at a piece of training equipment, this warrior who could probably arm wrestle a tank and win. There was something unexpectedly endearing about it. This fierce, controlled, absolutely terrifying instructor defeated by human engineering. Her ears were fully flat now, pressed against her skull, and she made a small sound of frustration that was almost, "That's actually kind of cute." The words left Ethan's mouth before his brain caught up to stop them. Just a casual observation, the kind of thing you'd say without thinking. He'd barely finished the sentence when he realized everyone in the training hall had gone completely silent. Vekara froze, completely froze like someone had hit a pause button on reality. Then her skin changed. It started at her neck, a flush of brilliant crimson that spread upward and outward like wildfire. Within seconds, her entire visible skin had turned a blazing red that seemed to glow from within. Her ears shot straight up, rigid with shock. Her eyes went wide, pupils contracting to pinpoints. The harness dropped from her hands with a clatter that echoed in the absolute silence. She stared at him. Just stared, her mouth slightly open, her whole body radiating that impossible crimson. For 3 full seconds nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Then Vikara turned and walked away. Fast. Faster than Ethan had ever seen her move outside of combat drills. She crossed the training hall in long strides, her skin still blazing that mortified red, and disappeared through the far exit without looking back. Ethan stood frozen, his water container halfway to his mouth, his brain trying desperately to process what had just happened. Around him, the other trainees were staring, some at him, some at the door Vikara had vanished through, all with expressions ranging from shock to something that might have been amusement. One of the Carinth junior instructors, a warrior named Thesk, made a sound that was probably their version of a laugh. Several other Carinth had gathered near the equipment racks, and they were definitely watching Ethan now, their skin shifting through various colors he didn't have names for. His human teammate, Private Jennifer Brooks, leaned close. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Dude, what the hell did you just do?" Ethan found his voice. "I have no idea." "Well, you did something. I've never seen Instructor Vikara move that fast, or turn that red, or—" Brooks paused. "Did you just break our instructor?" "I don't know." Ethan looked around wildly. "I just said it was just a word." Another human trainee, Corporal Davis, had pulled out his datapad and was frantically typing. His face went pale. Oh man, Cole, you really did it." "Did what?" "That word, cute. Do you know what that translates to in Carinth?" Davis turned the datapad around. The translation file was open, with approximately 15 warning flags attached to the entry. Ethan read it, then read it again. Then felt his own face start to burn. That can't be right. "It's right," Thesk said, approaching them with that predatory grace all Carinth seemed to possess. The junior instructor's skin was shifting through shades of blue that might have been amusement. "You have just spoken a courtship word to Instructor Vikara, in front of witnesses. This is very significant." "I didn't mean, it's just something humans say." "Intent matters less than action among my people," Thesk said. Their ears tilted forward with clear interest. "You have made a declaration, Sergeant Cole. Instructor Vikara has responded with acceptance color. This will be very interesting to observe." "Acceptance what?" But Thesk was already walking away, and the other Carinth were dispersing, several of them making sounds that might have been their version of excited gossip. Brooks punched his arm. "You just accidentally proposed to our instructor. This is amazing. I'm telling everyone." "Please don't." "Too late. This is going in my memoirs." She was already pulling out her comm unit. Ethan stood in the middle of the training hall, surrounded by abandoned equipment and the fading echo of the worst moment of his life, and tried to figure out how a single word, one stupid, careless word, had just derailed his entire military career. Somewhere in the outpost, Instructor Vikara was probably plotting his death, or his court-martial, or possibly both. He looked down at his hands. They were shaking. This was going to be a really long assignment. Ethan spent a sleepless night researching Carinth culture and trying not to panic. His quarters were standard military issue, small, functional, and currently covered in holographic displays showing translation files, cultural databases, and increasingly alarming forum posts from other humans who'd made similar mistakes. The consensus was clear. He was screwed. Morning came too early. Ethan dragged himself to the mess hall, operating on 2 hours of sleep and the vain hope that maybe yesterday had been a weird dream. The moment he walked in, every conversation stopped. Dozens of eyes, human and Carinth alike, tracked his movement to the food dispensers. Lieutenant Maria Santos intercepted him before he reached the coffee. She was grinning in a way that suggested this was the most entertainment she'd had in months. "Sergeant Cole, I heard you had an interesting day yesterday." "With respect, Lieutenant, I don't want to talk about it." "That's unfortunate because, as the Xenocultural Liaison Officer, I'm obligated to brief you on what you've stepped into." She steered him toward a corner table, away from the staring crowds. "So, you called Instructor Vekara cute." Ethan wanted to sink through the floor. I didn't know what it meant. Clearly, but ignorance doesn't change the outcome. Maria pulled up her datapad, scrolling through files. Among Carinth, commenting on someone's appearance or mannerisms in an affectionate way is reserved for extremely close relationships. Family, childhood companions, or romantic partners. When you use such language publicly, especially to someone of higher rank, you're essentially declaring romantic interest and asking them to consider courtship. She was struggling with the harness and it was. Ethan rubbed his face. It was just an observation. An observation that, in her culture, translates roughly to "I find you attractive and wish to pursue a relationship with you. Please consider me as a potential mate." Maria said this with the clinical precision of someone who'd spent years studying alien linguistics and was now getting to see theory become disastrous practice. The turning red thing. Acceptance color. Or more accurately, intense embarrassment combined with acknowledgement. You caught her off guard, paid her what her species considers a deeply personal compliment, and did it in front of witnesses. She couldn't just ignore it without causing you social harm, so her body responded instinctively. The red means she heard you, recognizes the significance, and is now completely mortified. Ethan dropped his head into his hands. "How do I fix this?" "That depends. Do you want to fix it by rejecting her formally, or by actually pursuing the courtship you accidentally initiated?" He looked up sharply. "What?" Maria leaned back, studying him. "I'm not blind, Cole. I've seen you watching her during training. The way you pay attention when she demonstrates techniques, how you actually push yourself to meet her standards instead of just coasting like half the other recruits. You respect her maybe more than respect." She paused, "So the question is, was it really an accident?" "I don't," Ethan started, then stopped. He thought about Vekara's controlled movements, her dedication, the rare moments when her stern expression shifted into something almost like approval. "I think she's impressive." "That's not an answer." "I don't know the answer. 24 hours ago, she was just my terrifying instructor. Now apparently we're in some kind of alien courtship situation because I used the wrong adjective." "Welcome to Xenocultural Relations." Maria's expression softened slightly. "Look, here's the reality. You've got three options. 1. Formal rejection, which involves a public ceremony, ritual combat, and will basically nuke any chance of productive human-Carinth relations on this outpost for months. 2. Ignore it and hope it goes away, which will make both of you look weak and dishonor Vekara in front of her peers. 3. Lean into it. Learn their courtship customs, show genuine interest, and see where it goes. And if I choose 3 and then it doesn't work out, then you end the courtship properly, which is much less dramatic than a rejection. But Cole," she fixed him with a serious look, "if you're going to do this, you have to commit. Carinth take these things seriously. You can't half-ass an alien courtship ritual." Ethan laughed, slightly hysterical. "This is insane. This is your life now." Maria stood. "Vekara requested a substitute instructor for your training sessions. That means she's trying to create distance, probably to give you space to decide. You've got maybe 48 hours before the whole situation becomes socially untenable. Figure out what you want." She left him alone with cold coffee and spiraling thoughts. The next day, Ethan's replacement instructor was a stoic warrior named Corvus who worked him twice as hard and offered exactly 0 feedback. It was professional, efficient, and completely miserable. Every time Ethan looked around the training hall, he caught glimpses of Vekara working with other units, her movements as precise as ever, her skin carefully neutral gray. She never looked his direction. Not once. By evening, Ethan found himself in the observation deck, staring at distant stars and trying to make a decision. Footsteps behind him. He'd learned to recognize the distinctive gait of Caranth warriors. He turned. Vekara stood several feet away, maintaining careful distance. Her skin was neutral gray, but her ears were angled forward toward him, paying attention despite her controlled posture. "Instructor," Ethan said, because he didn't know what else to say. "Sergeant." Her voice was as controlled as her expression. "I have come to offer formal apology. My reaction yesterday was inappropriate. I allowed personal response to interfere with professional duty. It will not happen again." "You're apologizing. I'm the one who." "You spoke words of your language without understanding their translation. The fault is mine for responding as if you understood our customs." She paused, and something flickered across her face too fast to read. "Lieutenant Santos has informed you of the situation, yes?" "She has." "Then you understand that you may request formal rejection. I will accept this without protest. Your career and comfort should not suffer for cultural miscommunication." Ethan looked at her, really looked. She stood with perfect military bearing, but her ears were slightly flattened. Her skin remained neutral, but there was tension in her shoulders he'd never noticed before. She was giving him an out, making it easy for him to walk away, and he realized with sudden clarity that she expected him to take it. "What if I don't want formal rejection?" The words came out before he'd fully decided to say them. Vekara's skin flickered, just for a moment toward pink before she controlled it back to gray. "Explain." "I didn't understand what I was saying, but I wasn't lying either. You are." He struggled to find words that wouldn't make everything worse. "When I called you cute, I meant it as a compliment, an observation that you were endearing." Which probably doesn't translate well either, but the core of it. He took a breath. "I think you're impressive. I respect you. And when you were fighting with that harness, there was something genuine about it. Something that made me see you as more than just the terrifying instructor who could break me in half." Her ears tilted forward completely. "You are saying you did not wish to cause offense." "I'm saying I wouldn't take the words back, even if I could. I just choose them more carefully." He managed a weak smile. "So if the options are formal rejection or figuring out how Caranth courtship works, I think I'd like to try the second one. If you're willing to teach me." The pink was back in her skin, spreading slowly from her neck. "This is significant. Courtship among my people is not casual." "Nothing about you is casual, instructor. I'm starting to learn that." For the first time since the incident, Vekara smiled. It was small, uncertain, but unmistakably real. Her skin deepened to a warm rose color that made her look softer, younger. "You will need instruction. Our customs are complex." "Lucky for me, you're an excellent teacher." The pink intensified to nearly red, embarrassed pleasure he was learning. "You are. Unexpected, Ethan Cole." "Is that good or bad?" "I am not certain yet." But she stepped closer, closing some of the distance between them. "We will learn together." Outside the viewport, stars wheeled slowly through the dark. Inside, two people from different worlds stood in careful proximity, beginning to navigate something neither of them had planned, but both were choosing to explore. It wasn't how Ethan had expected his assignment to go. But watching Vekara's skin cycle through shades of pink and gold, her ears relaxed for the first time since he'd met her, he thought maybe unexpected wasn't the same as wrong. Learning Caranth courtship customs turned out to be significantly more complicated than learning Caranth combat techniques, which was saying something considering Ethan still had bruises from yesterday's grappling session. He sat in the outpost library, a quiet corner filled with holographic texts and translation interfaces, scrolling through cultural databases while Maria Santos provided running commentary. "So, courtship phase 1 is called Demonstration of Worth," Maria read from her notes. "Both parties prove through action that they're capable, dedicated, and strong enough to stand beside a potential partner. It's less about romance and more about practical partnership assessment. Ethan rubbed his temples. That sounds exhausting. It's Carinth. Everything they do is exhausting. She pulled up a series of images showing traditional courtship rituals. The good news is you've accidentally skipped several awkward preliminary steps by using intimate language publicly. The bad news is Vikara is now culturally obligated to demonstrate that she's worthy of such words, which means she's going to start showing off. Showing off how? Remember that she's a warrior. Figure it out. The answer became clear during that afternoon's training session. Vikara had returned to instructing his unit, but something had shifted. She still pushed them hard, still accepted no excuses, but now when she demonstrated techniques, she did them with extra flourish. A combat throw that could have been simple became an aerial display. A defensive block turned into a counter that left the practice dummy in pieces. She was spectacular. She was also, Ethan realized with growing horror and amusement, trying to impress him. After a particularly elaborate disarming sequence, she glanced his direction. Her skin flickered toward pink before she controlled it. Her ears tilted forward, tracking his reaction. Ethan found himself grinning despite the absurdity. She just demolished 3 practice targets using a training weapon and some kind of spinning maneuver that defied physics, and now she was watching him like a student waiting for approval. Private Brooks leaned close, whispering, "Dude, your alien girlfriend is showing off." "She's not, we're not," Ethan gave up. "Shut up, Brooks. This is the best thing that's ever happened on this outpost. I've started a betting pool on when you two actually." "Brooks, I swear." Vikara called them back to formation, her skin carefully neutral but her ears still angled toward Ethan. The rest of the session followed the same pattern. Professional instruction punctuated by moments where she demonstrated skills that went well beyond what was necessary for teaching, each time followed by that quick glance to see if he noticed. He noticed. Everyone noticed. The other Carinth instructors had started gathering to watch, and several were making sounds that were probably their version of amused commentary. After training, Ethan found himself intercepted by 2 Carinth warriors he didn't know. They introduced themselves as Thesk and Marana, friends of Vikara from her combat certification trials. Both regarded him with open curiosity, their skin shifting through various shades of blue and green. "You are the human who spoke courtship words," Marana said without. "That much is obvious," Marana said, but her tone was almost kind. "Vikara speaks of you with what we recognize as interest. She describes your dedication to training, your willingness to adapt. These are qualities we value." "She talks about me. More than she realizes." Thesk exchanged a glance with Marana. "You should know that Vikara has not courted before. She is inexperienced in these matters. Her whole life has been combat duty service. When you spoke those words, you awakened something she did not expect." Ethan felt something tight in his chest. She could have anyone. Why would she? Why would she be interested in a human who saw past her warrior reputation and called her cute? Marana's skin shifted to warm gold, perhaps because no one else has. They left him with that thought, and a strong suggestion that he learn the proper gesture for "I value your demonstration" before tomorrow's session. Ethan spent the evening practicing hand signs with Maria, feeling ridiculous and determined in equal measure. The next week established a rhythm. Training during the day, where Vikara continued her campaign of impressive demonstrations, and Ethan tried to respond with the appropriate cultural recognition. Study sessions in the evening, where he slowly built vocabulary in her language and learned to read the subtle color shifts in her skin. They had actual conversations now, careful and formal but increasingly natural. She taught him about Carinth philosophy, the balance between warrior self and contemplative self, the importance of honor through action rather than words. He shared human concepts in return. Art for art's sake, music that served no practical purpose, stories told purely for emotion. Her fascination with human culture surprised him. She listened to earth music with her ears tilted forward in concentration, trying to understand why humans would create something that didn't help them survive. He played her everything from classical to rock, watching her skin shift through colors as different genres affected her. "This serves no tactical purpose," she said after listening to a piano concerto, "but it makes my chest feel strange." That's called being moved, emotionally affected. Humans allow this often. Pretty much constantly, it's kind of our thing. Her skin flickered gold. "I think I understand why you spoke without considering consequences. Your people feel first and think second. Sometimes is that bad? I am not certain. It is different from our way." She tilted her head, studying him. "But it led you to speak truthfully when calculation might have kept you silent. There is honor in that." The turning point came during a joint combat exercise that went catastrophically wrong. A training simulation glitched, sending drones haywire in the zero-gravity chamber. What should have been a controlled drill became actual danger, as malfunctioning equipment spun through three-dimensional space at dangerous velocities. Ethan was helping evacuate junior trainees when he saw the support beam break loose from its moorings. It tumbled end over end, rotating fast, directly toward a group of human recruits who hadn't seen it yet. He moved without thinking, pushing off a wall to intercept them, shouting a warning. He got 3 people clear before he realized the beam had changed trajectory. Now it was coming at him, and he didn't have time to dodge. His brain had just enough time to think this is going to hurt before. Impact. Not from the beam, but from something hitting him from the side with the force of a controlled missile. Vekara. She'd launched herself across the chamber, tackling him out of the trajectory and taking the beam's impact on her shoulder. They crashed into the far wall together, her body shielding his, her arms wrapped protectively around him. The emergency protocols kicked in. Gravity stabilized. The beam clattered to the floor. In the sudden silence, Ethan found himself pressed against the wall with Vekara pinning him there, breathing hard, her skin blazing crimson, not from embarrassment this time, but from adrenaline and what he was beginning to recognize as intense emotion. "You were going to be injured," she said, her voice rough. "You protected me." Of course. She didn't move, and neither did he. Up close, he could see the intricate patterns in her skin, the way her markings swirled with bioluminescent light. Her eyes were fixed on his face with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. "You are," she struggled with words, then switched to her own language, something that sounded like music and stone grinding together. "What does that mean?" Ethan asked softly. "It means one who is valued, one who should not come to harm." Her skin cycled through crimson to deep purple to something that might have been gold. "When I saw that beam moving toward you, I felt, my people do not have word for this. Fear, but more. The thought of you injured made my chest hurt. Vekara, you called me cute. You said I was worth standing beside. I have been trying to show you through action that I am worthy of such words, but in this moment, I realize I have been showing the wrong thing." She shifted slightly, her weight still pinning him but her grip gentling. "I should have shown you that you are equally worthy, that I would stand in front of danger for you, that your safety matters more than my own pride." Something in Ethan's chest cracked open. He reached up carefully, telegraphing the movement like she'd taught him, and touched her face. Her skin was warm beneath his palm, thrumming with what felt like a second heartbeat. "You just threw yourself in front of a flying metal beam for me. I think that message came through pretty clearly." Her laugh was shaky. "I am not skilled at this courtship. I know combat, demonstration. I do not know how to speak what I feel." "Then don't speak, just," he paused, searching for the right words. "In human culture, when someone protects you like this, it means they care, deeply. Is that true for your people too?" "Yes." The gold in her skin brightened. "But for Carinth, such action means even more. It means I have chosen you above my own safety, above my own honor. There is no greater declaration." Ethan felt his own heart racing. "Then I guess we're both pretty serious about this accidentally started courtship thing." Vikara's ears tilted forward and her smile was uncertain but genuine. You still wish to continue, even knowing what it means. Especially knowing what it means. He slid his hand from her face to lace his fingers through hers, that gesture that had become familiar between them. You threw yourself in front of a beam for me, Vikara. I think that's worth figuring out where this goes. The crimson in her skin deepened, but this time it was mixed with gold and pink, embarrassment and pleasure, and something he was starting to recognize as affection. She helped him to his feet, maintaining that careful contact, and for a moment they just stood there in the aftermath of near disaster, both realizing that what had started as an accident had become something neither of them wanted to walk away from. Around them, other warriors and humans were dealing with the equipment failure, checking for injuries, running diagnostics. Nobody was paying attention to the two of them anymore. It felt like a small moment of privacy in a public space. "This is not how I expected my assignment to proceed," Ethan said quietly. "Nor I." Vikara's grip on his hand tightened slightly. "But I find I do not wish it had gone differently." "Yeah, me neither." They stood together as the emergency teams cleaned up, neither one quite ready to let go, both beginning to understand that some of the best things in life came from mistakes you chose to turn into something intentional. 3 weeks later, Ethan had a new problem: Thoraz. Commander Thoraz was a high-ranked Caranth warrior, respected and influential, with ceremonial scars that indicated he'd survived at least a dozen formal challenges. His skin was darker than most Caranth, deep charcoal with bronze markings, and his presence commanded immediate attention. He'd been off station during the initial courtship drama, but had returned to find that Vikara, one of his most promising junior commanders, was involved with a human. He was not pleased. The confrontation came during a joint tactical briefing, with representatives from both human and Caranth command present. The discussion was supposed to be about coordinating patrol schedules. Instead, Thoraz derailed it completely. "I have heard interesting news," he said, his voice carrying through the briefing room. "Instructor Vikara has accepted courtship from a human. This troubles me." The room went silent. Vikara's skin shifted toward defensive orange, but she kept her expression controlled. "Commander Thoraz, this is not the appropriate." "It is entirely appropriate. When a warrior of your standing engages in behavior that affects unit cohesion and cultural integrity, it becomes a command concern." Thoraz turned his attention to Ethan, who felt like he was being evaluated as a potential threat. The human spoke words he did not understand. "This is not courtship. This is mockery of our traditions." Ethan felt anger spark in his chest. "With respect, Commander, I may not have understood the exact translation, but I understood the sentiment. And I've spent the last month learning your customs specifically to honor what I started." Learning is not the same as understanding. You are human. You cannot grasp what it means to stand beside a Caranth warrior. You will fail her, disappoint her, and bring her shame among our people. Vikara stood, her skin blazing that angry orange. "You overstep, Commander. You question my judgment." "I question whether your judgment is clouded by novelty. A human who paid you attention when others did not." Thoraz's tone was almost gentle, which somehow made it worse. "You deserve a worthy partner, Vikara, not someone playing at understanding." The implication was clear. Ethan was a temporary curiosity, not a real prospect. He saw the way Vikara's ears flattened, saw the hurt beneath her anger, and something in him snapped. "You want to see if I'm playing?" Ethan stood, facing Thoraz directly. "Then let me prove it. I challenge you to a combat demonstration." The room erupted, humans shouting protests, Caranth making sounds of surprise and interest. Maria Santos looked like she wanted to strangle him. Vikara's skin cycled through 6 colors in rapid succession. Thoraz regarded him with something that might have been respect. "You understand that I am trained warrior. I have survived challenges from opponents far more experienced than you." "I understand, but I've been training under the best instructor on this base. If I've learned nothing, that's on me. If I've learned something, that proves I'm committed to understanding your ways. And when you lose, if I lose badly, you can call this mockery and I'll accept formal rejection. But if I hold my own, if I show that I've actually learned, then you acknowledge that I'm serious about this. Thoraz's ears tilted forward with interest. He looked at Vikara, who was standing frozen, her skin bright gold with what Ethan was learning to recognize as pride mixed with terror. Instructor, do you accept these terms? Vikara met Ethan's eyes. He saw the conflict there, fear for his safety, anger at Thoraz, and something warm that might have been admiration. Finally, she nodded. I accept. The challenge will be held tomorrow. Standard demonstration rules. That night, Vikara found Ethan in the training hall, running through combat forms alone. She watched from the doorway for a long moment before approaching, her skin cycling through worried blues and golds. You did not need to do this, she said quietly. Yeah, I did. He was questioning whether I take this seriously, whether I take you seriously. Ethan paused mid-form, turning to face her. Every time someone doubts this, it puts you in a bad position. You have to defend your choice, prove your judgment. That's not fair to you. Thoraz is skilled. He could injure you severely within the rules of demonstration. Probably, but I've been learning from you for weeks now. If I can't at least hold my ground, what does that say about your teaching? He managed a crooked smile. Besides, I'm stubborn, very human trait. Vikara's skin shifted to soft pink. I have noticed this about you. She crossed the distance between them, her movements careful. You understand that even if you lose, I will not end this courtship. Thoraz's opinion does not control my choice. I know, but it's not just about his opinion. It's about showing your people that I respect your culture enough to meet challenges their way, that I'm willing to put myself at risk to honor what we've started. She reached out, touching his face with gentle fingers. You are strange, Ethan Cole. You stumble into situations without planning, then commit fully once you understand them. This is very unlike Caranth's approach. Is that bad? I do not think so. I think perhaps your people and mine balance each other. We plan too much. You feel too much together. She trailed off, her skin glowing warm gold. Together we figure it out as we go. Yes. Her smile was soft. Together we improvise. They spent the rest of the night drilling combat sequences, Vikara coaching him through techniques with patient intensity. By dawn, Ethan was exhausted and covered in bruises, but he knew the forms as well as he'd ever known anything. The demonstration took place in the main arena, with what felt like the entire outpost watching. Ethan stood across from Thoraz, acutely aware of every eye on him. He'd faced challenging situations before, hostile negotiations, dangerous missions, but this felt different, more personal, more important. Thoraz bowed with formal respect. Ethan returned it, trying to remember everything Vikara had taught him about proper challenge etiquette. Then the commander moved. It was like fighting a force of nature. Thoraz was fast, skilled, and had probably forgotten more about combat than Ethan would ever learn. But Ethan wasn't trying to win. He was trying to show that he'd learned, that he could adapt, that he understood what Vikara had been teaching him. He used footwork to maintain distance, reading Thoraz's intentions through minute shifts in posture just like Vikara had taught him. When the commander struck, Ethan blocked or dodged, giving ground strategically rather than trying to hold position against superior strength. He looked for openings not to attack, but to demonstrate technique, a counter that showed he understood leverage, a defensive position that proved he'd internalized the philosophy behind the movement. He wasn't winning. He was never going to win, but he was learning in real time, adapting to Thoraz's style, showing that Vikara's instruction had taken root. When Thoraz finally landed a solid hit that sent Ethan to the mat, he got back up. The commander came at him again, testing different angles, and Ethan responded with everything he'd learned. He went down twice more, got up twice more, and on the fourth exchange, he managed a counter that actually made Thora's pause. It wasn't a win, but it was respect. Finally, Thoras signaled the demonstration complete. Ethan stood on shaking legs, bleeding from a split lip and probably sporting new bruises that would hurt for days. The commander regarded him with those evaluating eyes, then made a sound that might have been approval. "You are slow, weak. Your form is adequate at best," Thoras said, his voice carrying through the arena. He paused and something shifted in his expression. "But you learn, you adapt. You do not quit when faced with superior opponent. These are Caranth virtues. These are qualities we respect." He turned to address the assembled crowd. "I challenge this human sincerity. He has answered with action, with persistence, with willingness to face humiliation for honor. This is not mockery. This is commitment." Thoras approached Ethan, lowering his voice so only those nearby could hear. "I was wrong to question Instructor Vekara's judgment. She has chosen a stubborn, strange human who does not know when he is outmatched. This is—" He paused, and his skin shifted to a proving blue. "Very compatible with her own nature. I give my blessing to this courtship." The relief that flooded through Ethan was almost physical. Thoras bowed, a gesture of respect between equals, and Ethan returned it, trying not to collapse from exhaustion and adrenaline crash. Then Vekara was there, her hands on his shoulders, steadying him. Her skin glowed brilliant gold and her eyes were suspiciously bright. "You are an idiot," she said, but her voice was thick with emotion. "You're idiot, though." "Yes." She pulled him close, heedless of the crowd watching. "Mine." The next weeks fell into a new rhythm, one that felt less like trial and more like partnership. Ethan continued training, improving steadily under Vekara's instruction. She shared more of herself, her history, her fears, her dreams beyond just being a warrior. He introduced her to human art, music, the concept of doing things purely because they brought joy rather than served a purpose. They found their balance. She taught him discipline, strategy, the value of patience. He taught her spontaneity, humor, the courage to be vulnerable. They argued sometimes. Cultural differences didn't disappear just because you acknowledged them, but they learned to navigate the conflicts with respect and genuine curiosity about each other's perspectives. One evening, they sat in the observation deck watching ships come and go. It had become their spot, a place to decompress after training and just exist together without the weight of military expectations. "I have been assigned new posting," Vekara said quietly. "Advanced Tactical Training Facility, 3 sectors away. I depart in 2 months." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Oh, you will also receive new assignments soon. Human Command rotates personnel regularly." She was watching the stars, her profile sharp against the viewport. "Our peoples do not blend easily. Long-distance courtship across species is complicated." "Yeah, it is." He reached for her hand, finding it already extended toward him. Their fingers laced together with familiar ease. "But complicated isn't the same as impossible." "No." She turned to look at him, her skin cycling through colors, blue uncertainty to pink affection to gold determination. "I have decided that I do not wish to end this courtship when assignments change. If you feel the same." "I called you cute by accident, started a whole cultural incident, got challenged by a commander, and have spent 2 months learning to read your skin colors and speak your language with a terrible accent." Ethan managed a smile. "You really think I'd walk